Track 11.
Our presentation is about how communication has changed over the years. What did you find out about this, Sebastian?
Well, I found out that communication in the past was very difficult. Early in history, people used smoke signals and drum sounds to communicate from a distance. Later on, paper was invented and people wrote letters, which were sent by ships or carts. It took ages for a letter to arrive at its destination. Years later, a new service called the Pony Express was introduced in the USA. Horse riders rode very fast to carry letters around the country. These changes were revolutionary at that time, but communication was still difficult.
That's very interesting, Sebastian. What did you find out, Carol?
I read that technology started changing communication in the 19th century. The telegraph and telephone were invented, and people used them to stay in touch with others. These inventions were really useful but still expensive, so not all people had access to them.
Okay, let's recap. So we can start by saying that communication was very basic at the beginning. So you, Sebastian, talk about primitive forms of communication, and then you, Carol, talk about the first technological devices used for communication, right?
And what are you going to say, Karen?
Well, I'm going to talk about the changes introduced in the 20th century. I'm going to say that people started developing the internet in the 50s, but it became popular and accessible to many people by the 90s. It's all changed so quickly since then, as we know.
I can also add something about recent changes. For example, smartphones have made communication very easy and fast. I can also talk about social networks, video chatting, and text messaging.
I think it's also important to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of these ways of communicating. For example, we can say that although communication now is easier and faster than ever before, people have lost real contact with others. Nowadays, people rarely visit others at home, and face-to-face communication is less common.
That's right. We need to remind people not to forget the real meaning of communication.